What's up, guys? Welcome back to Workshop Wednesday. I'm Garrett Shaw, and today is the last day of Adobe Illustrator Basics. Today, I'm going to be teaching you guys the final tool that I would consider one of the need-to-know tools of Illustrator, and that is the Blend tool. It allows you to tie in all the things that I've gone over previously, which are paths, shapes, color, shading, all that stuff, and it sort of unites them in a really unique and interesting way, and you get some really cool results. So this will be the last tool that I'll be teaching you guys before we dive into more advanced projects where we're actually going to make things from scratch or start out with a sketch and then turn it into a project. So technically you guys have all the core knowledge you need after watching this video to kind of experiment and really develop your design skills at this point in Adobe Illustrator. So without any further, chit chat or anything like that, I'm going to dive right into it, keep this short, just like my last couple videos. The first thing we're going to do is obviously open Adobe Illustrator. I've already got mine open, so if you guys don't, be sure to follow along and get that thing open as soon as possible. First tool we're going to use is going to be the shape tool. For the blend tool, you have to have two shapes or two lines or two of some object. It doesn't matter what, it just has to be two things. What the blend tool is going to do is it's going to kind of create the middle ground between two objects. And it's hard to kind of explain in concept by just describing it, so I'm just going to kind of show you. We're going to start by just making two squares. Okay, I'm going to make them just black squares and set them pretty close to evenly across the artboard here. The blend tool by default is W for the hotkey. You can also click it. It's down here on the menu. It has a square that goes into a circle. It's pretty straightforward where to find it. What you're going to do is you're going to click on one shape and then click on another shape. And what that's going to do is it's going to link the two shapes and it's going to draw a path in between them. By default, it will always be a straight line, and it will just sort of fill that gap as it sort of thinks it should. Where the blend tool gets really intricate and really, becomes powerful is inside of the options. There's one thing I haven't told you guys yet, and there's good reason for that, but the one thing you're going to want to know from here on out is a lot of tools in Adobe Illustrator, if you double click on the actual tool, it will pull up a dialog box for that particular tool, whether it's size, shape, scale, points and things like that. They're all applicable inside of these little dialog boxes. So what we're going to do is sort of go through these and what they do. By default, the spacing will be smooth color. There's three options in here. You have specified steps and specified distance. I'll leave it on smooth color for now. The other thing that we're going to look at later when we get into some more advanced stuff is the orientation. You can either align it to the page, which is the artboard you're working on, or you can align it to the path that it's on. You'll notice that those are curved, and you'll sort of see what happens there. So I'm going to check preview just so you guys can see things as I'm changing them. But the first thing we're going to talk about after you see the basics, we're going to go to specified steps. With specified steps, you're going to be able to increase or decrease the number of iterations of those shapes in between the two endpoints. What I mean by that is right now you have an endpoint A, endpoint B, right? And then you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 blocks in the middle of those two shapes. If I decrease this, it will go to 5. I can decrease that further and further and further and further, and you're going to see that it's evenly spacing them out from the center, or as best it can, depending on the spacing that you've given it. Okay, so you can even increase that further, but you'll notice that because we don't have any color here, it blocks out and becomes a flat black bar. Okay, you're better off just using the rectangle tool and making it at that point, but there are a couple of instances where that might actually be handy. So I'm going to go ahead and hit cancel here. Before I do though, specified distance, same thing, only you're telling it how far of a gap you want it to have in between each of those objects. So if I do like 100 pixels and turn on preview, Why is that so tight? I don't understand. Let's try 500 pixels. There we go. Okay, I just had a preview checked off. Lost my mind for a second. That's weird. Okay, so for whatever reason, 100 pixels doesn't work. It doesn't like it. So the specified distance there you can see is 250 pixels in between each one. Specified distance, you're better, in my opinion, you're better off using the align tool and creating the individual shapes. But you know, maybe in some cases that will come in handy as just as a means to speed that up for you. But we'll go back to specified steps here, and we'll just use 4 in between, so that gives us 6 shapes total. And what we're going to do now is I'm going to use the pen tool, so P, or click on the pen tool itself, and we're going to add a point right in the middle of our path here. And what that's going to do is that's going to actually allow us to bend and manipulate the blend path here. Okay. You can put that on a curve by hitting Alt and then, you know, actually curving it if you want to. And you'll notice that those objects in the blend sort of, you know, move accordingly to those paths. So if we increase the number of steps, you'll see that the bar sort of moves accordingly. Let's bump that back up to 4 just so we're on the same page there. I'm going to undo, actually, you know what, I'm going to leave that there, and then we're going to move on, and I'm going to create another square, and then I'm going to create a circle, okay? And the circle I'm going to make roughly the same size, and it's going to have the same amount of edges, okay? This is another important part about the blend tool, is that this has four points on the outside, okay? So 4 anchor points, and so does a circle in Illustrator. It also has 4 points on the outside of the object. The reason that this is important is because the blend tool operates on a transition method. Okay, so if an object has 5 or 6 anchor points and another object only has 4, somewhere in the middle of the transition that's created with the blend tool, it will have to lose or gain those 2 points. So it sort of starts to look a little bit weird. If you want a smoother transition, use shapes that have an equal number of anchor points. So here you'll see the classic transition between a square to a sphere as to a circle, sorry, as it slowly sort of becomes more and more rounded, ending up in a circle. A better demonstration of that will be if I go back into the options and change that to specified steps and turn this back down to 4, and you can see it sort of transition that way. I'm going to go ahead and make a set of squares again here, just 2 of them, and I'm going to color them 2 different colors. This is where we're going to bring color into the mix here. So make sure that you don't have a stroke on these. I guess you could if you wanted to, but for demonstration it makes it a little bit easier if you don't, because it just makes it easier to see what's going on. But it will transition if you do put a stroke, and I'll show you that in a second here. But if we blend between light and dark blue, you'll see we end up with a gradient. What happens here is it's on smooth color right now, okay? So no matter how far we spread that out, it's going to be a smooth transition from one color to another, i.e. a gradient. If we put it into specified steps and we bring that back down to 4, you'll see that it kind of creates a color palette for us of shades, okay? So maybe you were trying to find this perfect middle ground. It's going to assume that you could find that. If we actually bump that up to 5, it would give us that perfect center, or 3 even, and it'll give us that median in the middle there between those 2 colors. So that's a cool way that you can maybe come up with a intermediate color if you needed to, if you're working on some sort of layout or something like that. Another thing, the blend tool is a little bit complex, but I just want to cover the basics, so I don't want to get too tricky with it today. Let's see. Let's just show you guys what it looks like now when we sort of increase that to a smooth transition and add a bend in there. So if I go back to smooth color, let's see, there we go. So we go up to 260 and it gives us this nice smooth transition. Now if you guys watched the last tutorial, you'll remember that I talked about something called arranged order, or just order in general. The order in which these 2 shapes are created will distinctly change which shapes sort of take priority in the order here. So because this one is behind this darker blue, okay, so the lighter blue is behind the darker blue, you'll notice that as these shapes transition and they start to overlap, the darker blue side overlaps the lighter blue side as it comes in. So it gives us this interesting little shade here that kind of actually looks like, you know, some sort of a natural, or in this case kind of like a more 8-bit retro style shading because of those cornered edges. So if we go ahead and we bend this, okay, if we bend this shape, it's not going to do anything different, but you'll notice that that line is still there in that present transition. If I select this by using the direct select tool, which is just A, and I click on just that box, and I hit shift left square bracket a couple times, or in this case I'm just going to hit control shift left square bracket because it's going to push it all the way back and I don't have to worry about it, you'll see that that transition has changed, and I can hit control Z and sort of go back and forth just to show you guys how that transition worked. Another cool thing that you can do is you can transition letters. So if we take the letter A and we want it to go to the letter B, we'll just put those on the same line here and we click there. It does this sort of weird transition there, but you could even do that with words. So you could do it with the same word. So if we do awesome, right? If we do the word awesome, and we scale it down and or move it down and scale it up, and we blend, okay, so you can do some interesting things there. All right, again, like I said before, if you have two shapes and one of the shapes has a stroke, it will actually slowly but surely apply a stroke as it increases or as it moves across from one shape to another there. Okay, so you see this side has no stroke, all right, and this side has a 1 pixel stroke. If we increase this, maybe it'll be a little bit more visible for you guys. So 1 second. So there you go. You can see that it tries to create as smooth a transition as we're allowing. The higher the number, the smoother the transition, but keep in mind the more power it's taking to do that. So you can get pretty intricate, but it will get a little bit slower on your computer depending on the strength. In this case, I'm recording, so it's a little bit slower for me. One of the last things I want to show you guys is how you can use the blend tool to create a fake 3D sort of appearance. And the way I'm going to do that is to just create a sort of unique, organic sort of shape here. And then I'm going to create another one. All right. And I'm going to scale one of them down just a little bit. And then I'm going to blend between the two. All right. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to color these. So we're going to use kind of vintagey retro colors, and one be pink and one be blue, just for the sake of having it that way. And you end up with these interesting folds if you sort of start to play with some of these lines in here. You can sort of see how arranged order plays a role in how these things actually get used and get manipulated here. So you can sort of bend and ply these around at will to sort of see how things change. The other thing that's really cool about using this sort of technique to kind of create like an abstract background, if you will, is if you do indeed add a stroke to one of the objects, you can really get some very interesting situations with the transition between an object that's stroked and an object that has no stroke. Okay, so and here you'll see that these two objects don't have an exact amount or an identical amount of anchor points. So you'll see in a couple cases where it's having to sort of do the guesswork that I was telling you guys about, where it's just going, it's close enough, and we're going to add the anchor point here. So again, this is just for a demonstration. I'm not trying to make anything awesome here. This is just to show you guys that this is what the pen or the blend tool can do, because it's very strong. Again, in this case, we can again add a pen path or a pen point, an anchor point. There we go. And you can bend those shapes. So you can again create some even more unique shapes that way. If we remove the stroke from that, you get this sort of organic-y, perfectly sort of transition color, interesting object. It can be really cool to create some unique pieces and shapes, and just some different things that you wouldn't necessarily be able to do without the blend tool. The last thing I want to show you guys with the blend tool is a very, very easy technique, but a lot of times people leave text very plain. And a way to make it not so plain is if you take text and you sort of make it a little bit 3D. You add a little bit of an effect to it, Maybe we color the front blue, right? Okay, and then I'm going to duplicate that, and then I'm going to duplicate it again, but in this case I'm just going to hit Control C, Control Shift V, and then I'm going to hit Shift down, Shift right, Shift down, Shift right, and then I'm going to hit Control Shift left square bracket, move it all the way back. I know I'm going hotkey crazy here, but then what we're going to do is we're going to change this to a darker blue. Okay, so we're going to change the fill to a darker blue, and then we're going to blend between the two of them. Okay, and an easier way to do this is to sort of move one of them further away because they are in a text layer. We could expand them, but I don't want to talk about that yet. It gets a little bit complex. And what we're going to do is we're going to increase the number of steps to about 30, and then we're going to move these up right underneath our original text and line it up. Hit Control Shift left square bracket again, and we end up with this nice 3D sort of fake 3D text. And we can move that back layer with the direct select tool. If you hit A, it will bring up that tool. You can move this around. If we put it right back on top, it doesn't go anywhere really, but we can make that as extended as we want to. All right. So you could create some interesting animations this way. You could use it to your advantage to create, or do something where like time is passing by. So, maybe it goes from there to there, if like a light's passing, I don't know. But I'm just showing you guys a couple of examples of some cool and interesting things you can do. I like to use it in a very subtle manner, so I try to keep it, maybe right there, just a couple ticks back, just to give something a little bit more interest, just so that it's not so flat and flush. It just adds a little bit of something extra. So with that being said, guys, this has been the blend tool. I know that I covered it pretty quickly, but it's a very, very fun tool. I hope you guys have a lot of fun with it. Get into Illustrator, make some shapes, play around with it, and find out how it works for yourself. And I hope this was a good enough guide to get you guys started. I don't know if I'll have a workshop Wednesday next Wednesday, as it's going to be starting to get more advanced, so I have to kind of plan things out. So keep an eye out for a vlog coming up. I'll keep you guys updated, and that's about it. So thank you guys for tuning in this far. I hope you guys have enjoyed the lessons, and if you guys want to learn anything in particular, or like how to do something, or how to achieve a certain effect inside of Adobe Illustrator, please make a comment, hit me up on Twitter, or whatever you guys feel would be the best way to get in touch with me, and I'll try to make a tutorial on that as soon as possible. So thank you guys for all the support so far, and that's it. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks.